Hey everyone, it's me, DB. Just reminding you, we have t-shirts in the shop. Just go to pgttcm.com, check out all of our cool t-shirts and stickers. Heck, we even got some shelf curtains in there. Keep clean, look cool, have cool stickers to put on stuff. Join us on Patreon and get a free sticker. Or don't. It's up to you.
You're listening to KZOM, Oleander Public Radio.
Greetings, listeners. It is I, DB Spitzer and Farmer Dave, here once again to talk to you about the Cthulhu mythos, its books, its monsters, its unfortunate human casualties, its timeline in general, and even its tangential bits, like the dreamlands or things of a weird nature that are Lovecraftian leaning. Once more we head into those dark woods, further feeling those malevolent forces upon us. Once again we walk down the lightless stone staircase in the middle of nowhere.
You're listening to KZOM.
Hey everybody, it's me, DB Spitzer, here with Farmer Dave. Dave, how the heck are you doing this week?
I am doing well. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving, I hope you had a great Thanksgiving no matter what.
Yeah.
But if you're maybe listening to this later in July, I hope you had a great 4th of July. And, if you had it listening in August, I hope you had a great time going back to school.
And if you're listening to it next week, I hope you're having a good time hanging out, waiting for the bus, or on that plane trip, or on that long car ride. If you're having a long car ride, write us and tell us where you're going on the long car ride and how many episodes before you're like, ugh, not this guy again. Anyway.
And if you're a super intelligent mutant post-nuclear disaster giant cockroach, and you discover this in an ancient vault, and you're bringing it forth the first time to find out what human beings were like, I hope you have a great Thorax Day.
Yeah. And remember, sometimes it is okay to eat your young, despite what your emperor says.
And let's put Thorax back in Thorax Day.
Exactly. All right, everyone. So this week we're going to be talking about Messenger of the Old Ones and the Pool of Shadows as aspects of NYARLATHOEP. And then we're going to be talking about the Upper Planes. But first,
we also have an interview.
Oh, we also have an interview. Who do we have an interview with?
So it's going to be Angela Yuriko Smith, who is the editor of Time and Space magazine.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. All right, everyone. Now the theme song. Hey, everyone. We are back. That was the theme song. And, yeah. Dave, how's everything on the farm?
It is cold.
Yeah.
It's gotten a little chilly, and we're expecting the return of the snow. That's the type of weather that we get here. We get rain, heat, snow, and highly armed clowns. Those are the type of, and fog, I guess.
Yeah.
Those are the type of weather we have here. So, I guess, it's getting closer to winter time.
You know what fog brings?
Ghost pirates?
Ghost pirates.
Pirates,
so I'm glad that the fog
Or do ghost pirates bring fog? I always get those two confused.
I think it's fog brings ghost pirates.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. which is kind of weird because we are so far from the. I mean, we're not so far from the coast compared to like people who live in
The coast.
Utah. Yeah, but we're. I feel like we're far enough from the coastline that we shouldn't be affected by pirate ghosts, but it goes how it goes.
Yeah, river pirate ghost.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Pirates.
River pirate ghosts. Okay. Hopefully not Cruddy Creek pirate ghosts. Those would be pretty pathetic ghosts.
Yeah.
Anyway, Crap Creek, Crud Creek. I can never remember. I don't
Crap
go over
Creek,
there.
spelled
Okay,
Krapp.
Yeah.
After Jonas Crap.
All right. So, Dave, we're going to be talking about NYARLATHOEP right now.
Yes, and we're talking about two avatars, which, as near as I can tell, were created originally for the role-playing game.
Yep.
Which is fine, because as far as I'm concerned, that's as canon as almost anything.
Yeah.
But that means that there's not a lot of information on them.
Mm-hmm.
And if there is, a lot of it's going to be in the scenarios they came from. But and even if we know them, we don't really want to spoil that.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite all-time references I'm having in my hand, you guys can't see it, it is the Call of Cthulhu Creature Companion for the 4th edition. And
Okay.
it's got a deep one who's looking at a crystal ball and he's looking at the city. And it has a write-up on the Messenger of the Old Ones, which is an avatar of NYARLATHOEP. And for those who are familiar, I like the art. I love the art on 7th edition.
Uh-huh.
But they've kind of gone away. What they did in the 4th and the other editions is that there was always a paragraph describing the creature from a story.
Yeah.
And most of them were the actual stories that they came from. But this is this quote for the Messengers of the Old One is out of Joseph Payne Berman's The Willow Platform.
Yeah, okay.
The Willow Platform is definitely, I think, sort of it's a 1970s Outer Gods. I mean, I would consider it cosmic horror, where this sort of unemployed guy finds a book in Latin and a ring, and he summons this being, or this being's at least brain, my guess is that because that is the story that inspired them to use it in the Call of Cthulhu game, because I checked, Messages of the Old One.
Yeah.
I don't believe appears in the story. In fact, I'm just bringing up my PDF real quickly. But one of the thing that I like about this particular story is so the Willow Platform is that the spell has to be cast on a basically a tower made of willow trees. And that's where the Willow Platform comes from.
Gotcha.
So the Messenger of the Old One does not appear in the story itself, but I think it's inspired. And so it's basically the creature in that, and the messenger in the Call of Cthulhu, game books. Basically, it's this big sort of blob, and it basically is a messenger, I guess you could say. But one of the interesting things, at least in the game, is it has an ascetic attack.
Okay.
And so it gives you very specific in the game is the damage that its acid does. and it's sort of like a blob of flesh. You know, and it's large. Assuming that they're basing this on the Willow platform, it's the size of about 6 or 8 horses, and it's like they're all joined together, but it's like this giant amoeba that they're going in different directions.
Okay. Huh.
And yeah, and other than that, it basically pulls. It's almost like someone took like 6 or 7 shagoths and soldered them together, because they've got the same sort of acidic type attack that a shoggoth does. That it drags people in and sort of swallows them up like this super cosmic amoeba.
All right.
But other than that, I don't think, other than the actual game scenario that it came in, I don't think there's really anything about the old one, Messenger of the old one.
Okay. I mean, that's a lot more than what I had, but hey, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Up next, we have Pool of Shadow. This is
and I got nothing on that one.
Yeah, it's a form of NYARLATHOEP that was worshipped for over a millennia by druids. I'm gonna guess that they mean like Celtic druids, but he often appears at their rites in this form, but will transform into another if attacked. The Arkham Evil, Dapier. I don't know if this is from a game. I don't know if this is from a short story. The only real bit I know about this is it's a entry in the Encyclopedia Cthulhiana, or Cthulhu Encyclopedia.
Yes, and I thought that Arkham Evil was a campaign, but okay. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah.
But it's so I know almost nothing about this particular creature.
Yeah. I don't know how it looks. He often appears at their rites in this form, but I don't, and will transform into another if attacked. I don't know what its form is that it transforms into, and I don't know what its form is when it is at. Yeah, I couldn't find anything on the Arkham Evil.
Yeah, so Arkham Evil was a 3 scenario book published in 1983 for the Call of Cthulhu game. It was published, though, I'm assuming licensed, because Chaosium is pretty protective of what they have.
Yeah.
It was published under Theater of the Mind Enterprises.
Oh, I know this one. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, I don't know much about the Pool of Shadow, but I do know that this book exists.
Yeah, and I do know that one of the 3, I don't have a copy. I think it's actually a rather rare book.
It is a super rare book, yeah.
But probably pretty influential.
Mm-hmm.
And at least one of them is sort of a druid-based scenario.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I think we figured out everything we could on NYARLATHOEP this week. Join us next week when we're going to be talking about some more. I'm going to throw something out just between you and me. Go for it.
I did think it was rather rare, but I just looked it up. You can actually get a copy of Arkham Evil paperback from Amazon for only $25.
Oh, that's not too bad considering.
No, I'm not considering especially maybe when it comes in, I think I will order it. But it is, it's not adventures that maybe your players are as familiar with.
Yeah.
So yeah, that might be something that once my copy comes in, maybe we'll talk a little bit more about it.
What condition is it in, though? Does it have the covers ripped off?
So it looks like you can get it new or used at the same price.
What? Oh, that's cool. They must
have got to be a reprint.
Reprint, yeah. Oh, that's cool. I love it when people do a reprint. All right. Okay, cool. We'll be back in just a moment after these messages. Dave will be doing an interview, and then after those messages, then Dave and I will be talking about the upper planes of Dungeons and Dragons. All right, we'll see you in a bit, everyone.
Welcome to Innsmouth, stranger.
Hi, I'm Rob Whiten from the Innsmouth Book Club. Join me and my fellow guide John Chadwick as we take you on a fortnightly tour of Innsmouth. We visit places such as the Picture House, the Library and Innsmouth Museum to discuss all aspects of weird fiction, whether it be book, film, music, TV or art. As well as that, we stop over at the Gilman House to have a chat with a resident guest. That includes authors, artists, musicians, in fact Lovecraftian creatives of all types. You can find our free shows on Patreon, and there you can also sign up as a patron, which brings you bonus content, plus a monthly PDF copy of Innsmouth News, which features articles, author spotlights, all the latest news and reviews, and more. You can find us at patreon.com/InnsmouthBC. We hope to see you soon, because remember, Innsmouth isn't just a place, it's a state of mind.
Hey Dave, quick question.
Quick answer.
What is your favorite chocolate?
So I like white chocolate.
Yeah.
I also like white chocolate that has a little bit of salt in it.
Oh, yeah. You know, I didn't prompt you on this or anything, but I know that you can get a white chocolate with various things going on it over at Taza Chocolates. Taza Chocolates out of Somerset, Massachusetts, in Lovecraft country. It's a real chocolate place. They stone ground their own chocolate that they get fair trade out of South America. And I just want to say, everyone, Taza Chocolates, it's a great gift. They've got gift packs, they've got gift certificates, and they've also got chocolate if you don't want to give chocolate and you just want to keep it for yourself. So Taza Chocolates, check the show notes to get a code, save some money, and save yourself. Serve yourself. Taza Chocolates, check the show notes.
Yes. And even though you can't see us, if you could, you would realize that this is the time that DB is not here. But we have someone else that you can hear that's not my voice and not DB's. And that is Angela Yuriko Smith. Angela, would you like to maybe introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, so much for having me here, David. It's like such a thrill to be here. And I guess a little bit about myself. I publish Space and Time magazine and run Yuriko Publishing, which is soon to be another name because I'm taking a partner. And I guess I won't say too much about that, just, until we finish that deal, but there will soon be a grown-up doing the business end of things over here at Yuriko Publishing.
So I'm assuming that you're not.
I am not that grown up.
Conway Smith or Conway West or Elon Musk.
No, but you know what? I'm just saying, I wouldn't say no, maybe. I don't know. Send me the offer. But no, and I guess I'm a poet and I write a lot of dark things, but my history is in nonfiction. I worked for newspapers for 20 years, probably 20 plus years. I still tend towards nonfiction. So we have a nonfiction essay collection coming out. It's with Lee Murray. Black Spot Books is publishing it, called Unquiet Spirits. And that will be out on Valentine's Day in 2023.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, otherwise, not a lot to say, I guess. I won 2 Bram Stokers, and we have Elgin for Tortured Willows, second place Elgin. I can't think of anything else.
So, no, that's quite a bit. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your publication. It's Time and Space Magazine, right?
Yeah, Space and Time Magazine. And it actually was started by Gordon Linsner, who was in high school at the time. That's how, well, I don't want to say how old this is because that kind of insinuates Gordon is old, but it started in 1966. And he started it on a whim in high school on a mimeograph machine. I don't know if anybody really remembers what one of those is.
My fingers remember.
Yeah,
Exactly. Turned them all blue.
Yep, exactly. And they had that smell that I'm sure that we all have brain damage from. But so yeah, that's how the magazine started. Originally, they wanted to do comics, and then they realized how hard it was to do comics on a mimeograph machine.
Oh yeah.
So they did a fiction magazine called Space and Time. I have a copy of that original first issue. It's you almost can't read it because mimeograph machines were not the best for printing, but it's still pretty cool. They hand drew the illustrations. And then I think it was the next year, Gordon was like, that was pretty fun. Let's do it again. And so they came out with the second one. And then it just kind of progressed from there. And then I think he ran it for about 50 years. And then he was going to close it down. And by then it had like some really big names in it, like Jack Ketchum and Jonathan Mayberry, and there's a story or an interview with Isaac Asimov in it, and Gene Simmons did illustrations when he was 13 for Space and Time. So a lot of really cool history there. Yeah. And then he was going to close it down at 50 years, and then Hildy took it over from that, Hildy Silverman. And then 12 years later, I came along and I saw it was closing, so I took it over from there, and we're keeping it going. It's its own entity.
Excellent. And it's not only is, I'm sure, all the artistic endeavors, but the history in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's why I didn't want to let it go. I'd actually been self-publishing myself for about 10 years at that point. And I had run a publication, and I had, worked as an editorial assistant for a newspaper and done magazine work. So I could do it, but I really just wanted to write. And then I realized by self-publishing myself, I was getting in like a bubble where only the same people were always reading me. And I needed to branch out and get new people reading me. So I decided to submit to magazines. Christina Singh was a friend of mine. So I was kind of like, where is Christina Singh just published? I'll just go there and see if I can't get published. It was a magazine called Space and Time. And I went over all excited. Oh, I'm going to submit to my first fiction piece. And I read the thing about they were closing. And at the bottom of that, Hildy had a message about if anybody who knows how to publish could possibly take this over, we really don't want to see it die, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, nope. Not me. And then it just kept picking like, how do I just let that go? Like I could do it, and now I've fallen completely in love with it. So yeah, Space and Time isn't going anywhere, on to somebody else, because eventually I suppose I will die or something, but the magazine will live on.
Excellent. Now, Space and Time, it covers fantasy, horror, and science fiction. Mm-hmm. How do you blend those into one magazine?
Well, a lot of people this is where I'm going to get on a little bit of a soapbox. I believe that we should have a genre called speculative that encompasses all of those, because to me, they're all very similar. Like if you look at, say, Game of Thrones, there's a lot of horror in Game of Thrones. And or Alien. Is Alien a horror or a science fiction? So I feel
I've written entire articles on that.
Yeah, thank you. So that's why I think they nest up so well together. And even, fantasy, science fiction can go together, though it usually is horror that's the easiest pairing with either of those. So those are our favorite stories, is when we can get something with elements of all three. Like I can think of particularly, and I can't remember the author. I want to say Ken Hewler, but I may have that author wrong. But it was a really, really interesting and adorable and also terrifying story about, I think it was like a pan or a fantasy creature, and in a science fiction setting, kind of like the apocalypse, or maybe it was a girl that could see fairies, but in the apocalypse, science fiction kind of thing. And I mean, it's been years since I've read this, so it's fuzzy in my head, and there's been so many stories since then. But I just remember, and it was horror because, bad things happen at the end and there's some very creepy things going on. Those are my ultimate favorite stories, is when somebody can balance all three.
That wasn't published originally in Omni magazine, was it?
No, it was original to us. And I wish I had the issue in front of me, because I'd tell you exactly what it was called and everything. But I'll see if I can find that, and I will email it to you, because it's a very good story.
I remember reading in high school a story about an orphanage where the kids were seeing like fairies or angels, and then the nuclear war happened.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like it's been blending for quite a bit, for quite a while. It has.
Well, and there's so many, like say, bringing up fairies. There's so many stories where fairies are horrific. It's not just or mermaids, turn out to be carnivorous beasts, know. So it really, we're all bedfellows, horror, science fiction, and fantasy. And I think it's just easier to call us speculative.
Okay. What are maybe some of your favorite genre stories?
Oh, probably anything by Neil Gaiman. I mean, I absolutely love Neil Gaiman. I discovered him back when Sandman was being published as the graphic novels. But just all of his, like, of course, American Gods, Good Omens, everybody knows that one, Coraline, Stardust, Neverwhere, pretty much anything he writes. But it was do you remember those old Alfred Hitchcock anthologies that he used to do?
So I don't remember. I remember my grandfather having some and me reading them. I didn't realize he had written in any.
Yeah, I don't think he wrote in them, but he collected them. He was like the editor of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but those were my introduction into genre fiction. It was actually, I was in Catholic school, I think in second grade, and I came across this book called, and this is also why I'm always like, this is how important fiction is, I think, to people. It's not just entertainment, but it really matters, to a lot of us. I was in the Catholic school, and I was a very geeky, lonely, the reject child. That was me. I was definitely the reject child. And I found in the library there at the Catholic school this book called Alfred Hitchcock's Monster Museum. And it was just a bunch of horror stories by different authors. And some of it was like Ray Bradbury was in it. And I can't remember who else, but just a ton of names like that had submitted a story to him or given a story. But there was one called Shadow, Shadow on the Wall by Theodore Sturgeon. And that was just a story about a kid who doesn't get along with his mom. And, he has shadow creatures that are his friends. And they wind up taking care of things in the end. I don't want to give any spoilers.
Yeah.
But as a child, I identified with that story so much about like the dark things that I was so interested in were actually empowering me. Whereas like everybody was kind of around me telling me like, basically, what's wrong with you, kid? Why do you keep talking about ghosts, kid? You're really weird. Why do you keep talking about dead babies? What's wrong with you? But here was this story that was the thing that saved this kid. And so that story, I couldn't, of course, I read it. I read that book so many times, the nuns took it away from me. And like, I came back because I would check it out on like repeat, like go renew. And so one day they told me I had to check it in so that they could recatalog it or something. And then I came back and it was gone.
Gone.
And those nuns lied to me, because then they told me the truth of, well, we thought you were reading it too much and we want you to read other things. I admit I still have rage from that moment, but that story stuck with me so much that years later I started collecting the Alfred Hitchcock anthologies so that I could find that story. And then when I did, it was just like, yes, there's that story that kind of has guided me my whole life and taught me that hard things. Yeah. So that's always where I'm like, when we write stories, we think that they don't matter. I'm sure Theodore Sturgeon probably thought, whatever, I got paid $25, cool, or whatever. I don't know what the backstory is there. But to me, that was my saving grace, that story. So that's what I always think going forward when we're writing. We don't know who we're affecting, but that matters to somebody. And sorry, I went way off topic there, but yeah,
I really appreciate that. I think that's a great experience. I'm glad you shared it with all of us. Now, we also we were recently on a panel together at the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival.
That's right.
We were on the panel about are video games getting weirder? So what are some of your feelings about that?
I think that video games have always been pretty weird. That was such a fun panel, by the way, to be on you with. Both of you, that was such a fun panel. But I think video games have always been pretty weird. They're definitely getting weirder, but I think that's because we, like people, are so connected now that we're realizing more and more that we're all weird, and it's okay. Where before we were all stuck, before there was, like, say, social media or technology, we didn't know what was happening, across the state or across the world. Now we do. And so that connectivity, even though it can be like, there's toxic connectivity. I think for the most part, it's just telling us, like, I'm a weirdo, but there's weirdos out there in the world that are the same flavor of weird as me. And it's okay, because there's a lot, everybody's kind of weird. And I think that's reflecting in our games, where before it was like, don't like a zombie game because that obviously shows you're way too dark or weird or whatever, you're a geek or all of those things. And now we're able to do that. And it also does help that the geeks, have turned out to be all the rich ones growing up.
That's true. That maybe not personally, but in general, geeks may have a little bit more disposable cash than
some of us geeks. So I think that's why that's affecting the game world, as we're capable of imagining so much more now, and we're capable of admitting that we imagine so much more now, that it's reflecting in the games.
Yeah. So I am basically not a computer geek. I tell everyone I'm a book nerd. You know what the difference is? $20,000 a year.
That's very true.
Now, I have really enjoyed talking to you, but I've got a question we always want to ask everybody on the show. If you could be in charge of any creative project, you don't have to worry about money, you don't have to worry about copyright, any type of medium, what is your dream creative project?
It would probably be going and finding those old Alfred Hitchcock stories and bringing them to life, maybe even for film, like refreshing them for a new audience. And if money was no option, then I would be throwing some Neil Gaiman stories in there, because why not? Like a mix of newer authors and these classics. That would be my dream project, and new, fresh takes on these anthologies, and then transmitting them to film as well.
Yeah. So, and this is a little bit off, but something. I grew up in the greater LA area in the 70s, 80s. And this was before the big, cable television. And so LA had an abundance of TV stations. We had like 9 stations. And so they would compete. A lot of the independent stations would have to find things. And so a lot of them would do Twilight Zone and Alfred Hitchcock Presents. So, you're thinking about that. And I know, again, that they did like an Alfred Hitchcock Presents in the 80s when I was in high school. But I was thinking about, how great it would be to take those original stories and do it as some sort of Alfred Hitchcock Presents again.
Yeah, and that's exactly kind of because I loved those. I didn't get to watch a lot of TV as a kid, but when I did see those, absolutely loved them. That was, I mean, it's speculative, so I guess that was always what attracted me. But yeah, that would be fantastic. And now I get that they're, for us, outdated. We're just so used to like better special effects and all that. So I would love to update them, but keep that original solid core, which I guess is kind of what we've tried to do with the magazine too. We don't want to erase the history, but just update it a little bit for kind of the newer readers and the newer viewers that are out there.
Based on what's gone before you, but keep it current.
Exactly. Because what is in the past, like what Alfred Hitchcock did, and I mean we could even go back to like Poe and all the greats that came before us. Never do I think we should be trying to be like to eclipse them or to discount them, because they are why we're here. But we have to keep building those walls. Yeah, exactly. But it doesn't hurt us to go forward and claim new territory and build higher.
Absolutely. Now, it's just been a real pleasure to talk with.
Absolutely.
If our listeners are interested in Space and Time magazine or anything else that you're presenting, how could they get a hold of it?
Well, it's easy enough. It's actually on Amazon now. But if they go to spaceandtime.net, that's where we are there. And then you can always find me at angelawysmith.com. And I just don't do the middle name because that's really difficult to spell.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And looking forward to have you on the show again.
Absolutely. Anytime. It was a pleasure to meet both of you and to be on that panel with you. You guys are both like super cool and interesting people.
Well, until you get to know us.
Well, I mean, then we get back into that flavor of weird conversation. So I think we're okay.
Thank you once again for listening to People's Guide to the Cthulhu Mythos. You can help show your support by going to the show notes and following any of the links that'll tell you how to support the show and how to support our guests. And thank you to all of our guests who you can find in the show notes. Rate, review, subscribe, and remember, patrons get priority access to asking us questions, suggesting topics, even, I don't know, submitting stuff. Actually, you don't have to be a patron to submit anything. That's how Dave got on the show, and that's how you can get on the show too. It's the People's Guide to the Cthulhu Mythos. Rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends. Thank you for listening. Back to the show.
Hey, Dave.
Yes.
So this week we're talking about some D&D on D&D, and we're talking about the upper planes. So anything you want to say before we get going on the upper planes?
Well, I don't think they come into play a lot. I mean, unless you really got a plane hopping campaign, which would be fun.
Yeah.
Almost things take place in the material plane, or if a player is going to go somewhere, it's going to be a lower plane, like the Hells. But my understanding, so I may not be that much of an expert on the upper or the celestial planes, but they're kind of like heavens.
Yeah. Definitely true. Standard D&D cosmology, the upper planes are from lawful good to lawful chaotic. They go like...
You mean lawful neutral?
No. From lawful neutral to... No. From lawful good to chaotic good.
Oh, okay.
That's what I mean to say. Yes. Sorry about that, everyone. From lawful good to, oh man, chaotic good. All right. Yeah.
Oh, did you want me to go, or do you want to read that?
Go for it.
So it used to be the classic alignment tic-tac-toe. The goods on top, the neutrals, and then the evils on the bottom, and so I'm trying hard to remember back to my young whippersnapper days.
Okay.
But as I remember, the top three had their own planes, their own heavens.
Yep.
And that one of them, though, what really struck me is because they used what we would now, I mean, I think it was at the time actually an act of respect, but at the time we would have called it, I mean, now we would have called it, cultural appreciation, or, I mean, a culture, when you take other people's cultures. But one of them was the Happy Hunting Grounds.
Yeah, which has now been changed since, like, at least second edition has been the Beastlands.
Yes, and I want to say that was sort of spelled out in the deities and demigods.
Yeah. No, definitely. It changed up quite a bit, though, between first and second edition, like late second edition, like 2.5. They changed a bunch of stuff so that it wasn't like cultural appropriation so much.
That's the word I was trying to get. Thank you.
Yeah, and there's a phone going off somewhere telling me to do something. But no. They streamlined it a bit. They made it so that it wasn't, and also they took out they quit mentioning things by their cultural names. That includes Christian or Judeo-Christian.
I think it had the seven heavens.
Yeah, you have the seven heavens, but now it's Mount Celestia. Utopia became Bitopia. Elysium stayed Elysium. The Beastlands were the happy hunting grounds. Arborea stayed Arborea. Yasgard stayed Yasgard. Limbo stayed Limbo. Pandemonium stayed Pandemonium. Abyss stayed the Abyss. Carceri stayed Carceri. Hades stayed Hades. Gehenna stayed Gehenna. Beator replaced the 9 hells.
Okay.
And Acheron stayed Acheron. And, so Nirvana changed its name to Mechanus.
Okay.
And I think that may have more to do with a band.
Yeah.
In the 90s when a lot of these changes started. Nirvana changed its name to Mechanus to more kind of to relate to its mechanical nature, and really went heavy on its mechanical nature. And then, Arcadia is Arcadia, and then we're back to Mount Celestia. I went kind of starting with Mount Celestia. I went clockwise around the Outer Planes. And in the center, you have the Outlands, and above the Outlands, you have above a spire in the Outlands, not on a spire, and you can't actually use the spire to get into the city, but the city of Sigil, or Sigil, however you want to pronounce it, is a donut-shaped city on top of a spire. Yeah.
Yes, and I think that, celestial cartography is lesser thing in modern religions.
Yes.
But we definitely see this in Kabbalistic traditions, Norse mythology, where the heavens and the realms are mapped out. We even see that in the Thor movies.
Sure.
So there's definitely a history of that the D&D designers drew on.
Yeah. So we're going to start talking about Mount Celestia and its basic points. It's also known as the Seven Heavens. It is a lawful good place of rest. Countless paladins and saints have ascended there, and it's known for its what we would call angels. It has Osmons, which are large winged people. Then we have Acherons, which are large winged creatures, and Divas, which are not large winged creatures, but oh man,
famous musicians. No. So opposite. So divas are basically the Indian being, the subcontinent equivalent to angels. Enough that they're even on occasion drawn with wings. And I remember, again, this is my collective memory, that when divas were first introduced as a character in a dragon magazine, again, when I was late teens, early 20s, as they've sort of become a celestial, or sort of a stand-in in many ways to angels. Especially, I think they were kind of introduced during the Satanic Panic period, where it did not sort of imply where you could have angel-like or demon or devil-like creatures and not actually be the Judeo-Christian angels. And then again, if you had angels like in the Bible, those are some pretty scary creatures.
Yeah. Biblically accurate angels, I believe, is the meme that's been going on for a couple years there. But yeah. After Mount Celestia, we have Bitopia. Oh, something I wanted to mention about Mount Celestia, just landing in the water that makes up the first layer. The water is blessed. It's holy water. So if for some reason your character isn't fit for communion, you're gonna get burnt a bit. So it's just kind of like a low level like acid for like neutral characters, but like the more and more evil you are, the more and more it hurts. Up next we have Bitopia, also known as the Twin Paradises. It is kind of a lawful good, neutral good, aligned plane of existence that it's kind of weird how it's set up. If you look up, you will see green pastures, and if you look down, if you're on one layer, you'll see slightly more developed lands with like towns but also pastures and mountains that touch almost and do touch in parts on both layers. They both have underground parts, but it's like kind of like they extend in all directions. And it's spatially infinite, but it has like two subplanes that face each other. And it's a place of gnomes, I want to say, but yeah, gnomes and halflings, I believe, but I could be wrong.
Okay, and you definitely probably know much more about that than I do. But one thing I kind of just want to sort of maybe throw in there is that this is sort of consistent with a lot of
gnomes
pre-Christian.
Gnomes and other industrial folk, and it is the home of Carl Glittergold and other gnome gods. So
yes, and what I was going to say is that the sort of pre-Christian idea of what heaven is like, or the reward place, it's going to be like it is here on Earth, but bad things don't happen.
Yeah.
Your food doesn't get overcooked. You can't die, and so this is I think a very sort of kind of get that feel from this too.
Yeah. And Elysium, the next place, also known as the Blessed Fields, it's neutral good, and it is a plane of peace and unadulterated goodness. And it is a place where nothing bad happens. Your food doesn't rot. Your crops always come up. Your pets don't get sick. Your livestock never gets ill, never gets old.
Matt
That?
Damon substitute for neuromancer. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, that was Elysium, the movie. Sorry.
Yeah. And there's guardians, which are noble, immortal humanoids with bestial features. And Pelor, the sun deity, rules over their own realm in Elysium. But yeah, no, it's this place of just kind of like, yeah, things are good, man. Things are good.
And this, of course, is taken from a concept in Greek mythology.
Yep.
The Elysium Fields. I've even heard it called the Elysium Plain.
Sure.
Where this is, again, not being an expert on this, but it's sort of the Fortunate Isles. The good.
Yeah.
The good afterlife.
Definitely. After that, we have the Beastlands, which is neutral good, chaotic good. It's a place of idyllic nature. It's got the most stunning mountains. Its forests are the most foresty. Its goats are the biggest goats you've ever seen. The most
goaty.
Yeah, the goatiest goats that ever goated a goat. They've got buffaloes. I mean, it's like all the animals that you would think of being in nature, and all of kind of like the biomes, but it's like the idyllic kind of like most like the rivers are huge, and the mountains are great, and the plains are expansive, and the savannas are like what it's just like kind of like national parks and National Geographic videos on steroids. It's just kind of like grandness, and it's
as we kind of mentioned, it's definitely based on the Native American concept of the happy hunting ground.
Yeah.
But what it kind of reminds me of is the ancestral plane in MCU.
Okay. And like it also has like animal lords, and these animals are kind of like super smart, big giant versions, like big giant bestial versions of that animal. Like a goat, like even a Nubian goat would be a big, massive, muscly creature that had horns that were like exaggerations of a Nubian goat's horns, and like everything that you think of as goats, it would be the goatiest goat ever. Or like a house cat, or like a semi-domesticated cat, a feline, would be like massive. It would also have claws. It would be more of what we think of as like a mountain lion or something like that than a cat. And mountain lions are huge. I mean, it's kind of like that, and
which would be a great place for a druid character.
Yeah, and the goddess of forests, Elona, is like she has a realm there, so that's pretty cool if you ask me. But yeah, I need to get a drink of water or coffee. And finally, we have Arborea, which Arborea is kind of like a chaotic good aligned place of existence that has a lot of elven and Greek gods, Olympus kind of things going on for it, which sorry, I'm just trying to find my space. A lot of Greek gods and that kind of stuff going on for it.
So Mount Olympus, in game terms, is in Arborea.
Yeah. Olympic Glades, Arvandor, the heaven for heaven for elves. It's a fey realm of passion. abundance and nature's caprice. I totally botched that word. Yeah, it's Eladrin and the Court of Stars, Titans and the gods of Greek mythology, and the Elven Pantheon, or the Upper Elven Pantheon. But yeah.
And traditionally, this is where D&D Titans, which are more than giants but less than gods, dwell in this plane, as well as a lot of other surprisingly maybe not good Greek creatures like Medusas and Gorgons.
Yeah. But this is also a place of like champions and heroes. So champions and heroes do need, and also I believe there's entrances into like the lower realms, and they kind of like snake through the middle realms, the realms of conflict, whatever you want to call them. But yeah,
the Midgard.
Yeah, and so you have these caves that snake down from the upper planes to the lower planes, and there's access between the two for like bad things to get through, and I think it's just so that because the next realm is I believe is Yasgard, where there's just like fighting and punching and drinking, and Arborea is much like that, but with less battling. It's a fey realm of passion and abundance, and you have to have battles, and you have to have like it's the place where the Greek gods live, and we all know that the Greek gods like to do all kinds of crazy stuff, and this is their realm. So I don't know. I believe that there's also some sort of like when they're not messing with humans or they're not messing with elves, they've got their own place going on, and it's kind of like it wouldn't be like a Medusa, it would be the Medusa.
The Medusa.
Yeah. So yeah. It is a place that has an opposing side and a neutral side to it that all kind of link up, and that's what I think is Arborea is one of my favorite places to have like to have stuff go down, like a chaotic good world. If you think about it this way, it's like they're going to be okay with good creatures or good PCs. They're going to make fun of you maybe if you're like lawful good, but they're fine with neutral good. They're fine with neutral. They're going to be fine with like maybe chaotic neutral. They'll be okay with and tolerate chaotic evil because it means that they get to battle later. But yeah, no, it feels like the kind of place where you can take an adventuring party and everyone's not going to get like murder-fied right away, unless maybe they're like all lawful evil or something. But.
And what this kind of reminds me too is Lovecraft's Dreamlands.
Yeah, very much so. And I think that's a result of Lovecraft's Dreamlands being based off of aspects of Greek stories and Lord
Dunsany's Pangaea, yes, which was definitely based on Greek stories.
Yeah. So you have this, definitely, and it could even be used as your stand-in for the not Outlands.
The Dreamlands?
The Dreamlands, yeah. It could be your stand-in for the Dreamlands. There's just so much stuff. If there's a place that you're going to be able to like ride a zebra and fight necromancers and also be able to talk to cats, Elysium seems like it would be a place where that could happen just easily.
Definitely.
Yeah. Maybe Arborea. Not. I was thinking Arborea is a place where that kind of stuff could happen. Elysium, Arboreum. I feel both are very kind of like dreamlands. Like.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And that's it. Anything you wanted to say?
No,
about
I think we covered it pretty
Arborea?
well.
Okay. Cool. But yeah, no. Elves live there too. So. Yeah, no, I think this episode we covered some pretty cool stuff, especially in the Outer Planes, and I think there's probably some ways you could, I don't know, have like a pool of shadows in your Elysium or your Arborea, or in your Beastlands, and it's just like, what is this unnatural pool of shadows? But anyway, thanks everyone who is a patron on the show. Special shout out to the folks at Innsmouth Book Club. Check out the show notes to find what's coming up next, who the sponsors are, and how to find out more about our guests that were on the show this week. Recorded by David Heath and edited by DB Spitzer. You can find out more about this show on pgttcm.com, and also check out our back catalog and everything else if you want to get in contact. Thank you again. Music by DB Spitzer. Contact us at pgttcm.com and pgttcm@gmail.com. Thank you and have a good one. Dave, anything you want to say before we head out?
No, just everybody have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Goodbye, everyone. Say goodbye, Dave.
Goodbye.